Before I get to the regular intro, let's give a quick shout out to A.J. Brown. If you thought he was dominant in week one against the Detroit Lions, where he had 155 yards, oh my God, 156 yards, 1 yard more, and three touchdowns in the first half alone. Three touchdowns in the first half, all of which that were at least 25 yards in the first half alone. A.J. Brown is the first Eagles wide receiver to score three touchdowns in a first half since Kevin Curtis against the Detroit Lions in 2007, the game where we were wearing the blue and yellow jerseys that I love. And man, I just cannot rave enough about A.J. Brown's performance in this game. Three touchdowns in the first half alone, all of at least 25 yards. And he almost had a fourth one a couple of times. There was one pass, it looked like it was going to be the exact same route again. It was knocked away at the last second by the Steelers defender. And then late in the game, he started to cut back on a huge run. I thought he was going to get the fourth, but then Minkah Fitzpatrick caught up to him from behind. Minkah Fitzpatrick, by the way, on the first touchdown, A.J. Brown absolutely bullied Minkah Fitzpatrick. Speaking of which, A.J. Brown has more yards than every Tennessee Titans receiver combined, by the way. Every Tennessee Titans receiver combined, 659 to 658. So thank you, Tennessee Titans, for giving us a number one receiver. You really played yourself by trading away A.J. Brown to us, but hey, no backsies. It was so funny. It was so funny because A.J. Brown was destroying the Steelers just like how Claypool was destroying us the last time we saw this team. It was so poetic. It was so poetic, ladies and gentlemen. So now, on to the rest of the video. Hello, everybody. Ezra Rozier here. On Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers 35-13. Nick Sirianni joined the company of Andy Reid. We tied a franchise record for best start to a season, matching our 7-0 start back in 2004. This was our most complete performance of the season so far. For the first time all season, I thought the Eagles played a complete game on both sides of the ball. You had Jalen Hurts, who had an excellent game passing the ball against the Steelers' defense. Then you had the Eagles' defense really stepping up against Kenny Pickett, made his life a living hell. We sacked him a couple of times. And then you had Javon Hargrave, the former Steeler, forcing a fumble on Pickett that was recovered by Avonte Maddox. You had T.J. Edwards, who tipped the pass from Pickett, which led to getting intercepted by C.J. Gardner-Johnson. For the second game in a row, C.J. Gardner-Johnson gets an interception. Like this game, it was great. We finally played a full game. We played a full game. Like the Eagles, if we keep playing like this the way I saw them play against Pittsburgh, who's going to stop us? Who's going to stop us, ladies and gentlemen? The Eagles, unlike so many other games this season, like against the Lions, the Cardinals, and the Cowboys, the Eagles never gave the Steelers any hope in this game. The Eagles never took their foot off the gas. The Eagles never got comfortable. The Eagles never let the Steelers crawl their way back into this game in the second half. We kept pounding the Steelers, and I loved every second of it. Najee Harris, he couldn't do anything in this game. There was like one play where it looked like he was going to get like a 5-yard gain, and I don't think he got a single yard on that play. Really stepped up against the run, which I was worried about after how we let Ezekiel Elliott gash us in the second half of the Cowboys game. The Eagles played amazing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I get that the Steelers were a 2-5 team, but the way I see it, as long as they're led by Mike Tomlin as their head coach, you can never really count them out because the man, I keep saying this, he's never had a losing season. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. So whenever we play the Steelers, I always see them as a threat. I always see them as a team that could just really shock teams and get a win when nobody really expects them to. The Eagles, so I'm going to talk about some things that I didn't like in this game, though. So I believe it was on the Steelers' second offensive possession. We forced them to a field goal after a 3-and-out. And right as they were about to kick, we get called for a penalty. It's a false start against Brandon Graham. Now, Brandon Graham, he's a veteran. He can't make that mistake. Like, you just got to stop. You're forcing the Steelers and their anemic offense to a field goal. And then you let them get new life. And they ended up scoring a touchdown on that play. The very next play with Chase Claypool, the Eagle killer, he threw a touchdown pass to Watt, I believe, the relative of TJ Watt. But about that penalty, right? So it was a false start called against the defense. That was very bizarre. You never see the false starts called against the defense. Like, that's almost exclusively an offensive penalty. You almost always see that called on the offense. I haven't really seen a false start called on a defense before, but there you had it right there. Brandon Graham, he can't make that penalty. We still love Brandon Graham, but that penalty, man, that's a pretty sloppy penalty to make. And then there was a point like right before halftime where I thought the Eagles were getting way too pass heavy. We were getting way too pass heavy. And I'm saying, all right, so you got the Steelers in a hole a little bit right here. Why don't you just keep running the ball? Keep running the ball. In fact, on that possession where we got pass happy, the Steelers' defensive line started to sack Jalen Hurts a bunch. I believe he suffered two consecutive sacks on that drive. So I'm thinking like, okay, we're getting a little too comfortable with the pass. We're passing the ball a little too much. If we could run the ball, that'd be nice. And then in the second half, luckily, we figured out that, oh, yeah, run the ball. Miles Sanders played a bigger role in the second half of this game. He actually had a touchdown right after Javon Hargrave forced the fumble on Kenny Pickett. This game, it felt so good to see us take care of business on both sides of the ball, to not see us get so soft, to not see us get so passive, to not see us lose intensity in the second half. Coming out of the bye week, the Eagles played a full game, a complete game, and that is very satisfying to see. So the Eagles improve to 10-0 against the Steelers in the last 10 meetings in Philadelphia. The Steelers' House of Horrors continues in Philly. They have not won here since 1965. We will see them in Philly again in 2024. That's our regularly scheduled meeting with the Steelers. This was a meeting that was determined based on division placement between the NFC and the AFC. We were playing the AFC North. Any team that placed the same placement as us, we were going to play them. That's why we had the Steelers. We'll see them in 2024 as a scheduled meeting, but we got the win. Now, this next game, we have a trip to Houston. We have a trip to Houston, which is so funny because you have the Phillies playing the Houston Astros in the World Series, and then this very same time span, this very same week, you got the Eagles going down to Houston to take on the Texans. Now, this game is a trap, ladies and gentlemen. This is a trap game right here, a trap game, because you have a short week. You have the Eagles who just played on Sunday. It's a very quick turnaround to Thursday night. That's a very quick turnaround, 4 days. And this Texans team, they have Davis Mills at quarterback. They have Brandon Cooks at wide receiver, who was knocked out by the Eagles in Super Bowl 52. They have a very highly talented corner in Derek Stingley, but this Texans team is not good. They're 1-5-1. I believe their only victory was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but the team, they're not a good team. And this is the prime example of a game that a very highly favored team can lose out of nowhere. This is a trap game. The Texans, they basically have nothing to play for. Well, I mean, the Texans basically, they're just such a bad team that you could very easily underestimate them, and then they could come out and shock you. Now, the Eagles, we typically win on Thursday night. I believe we actually had a 5-game winning streak on Thursday, but it was snapped last season when we lost to the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Lincoln Financial Field. This game, I need us. We're on the verge of making history, ladies and gentlemen. So in 2004, the Eagles started 7-0, but the very next week, they suffered their first loss, coincidentally against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Eagles in 2004, we started 7-0. We lost our first game after that against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. The Eagles have never, ever started a season 8-0. We can see history made on Thursday night, ladies and gentlemen. For the first time in franchise history, the Eagles can be 8-0. But how bad do we want to be 8-0? This is something that no other team in franchise history has done. You have a golden opportunity here. And the Eagles, we own the Houston Texans. There are two teams that the Eagles have never lost to. The New York Jets, who we are 12-0 against, and the Houston Texans, who we are 5-0 against. We have never lost to this team. And in fact, the Eagles are actually 5-0 all time playing in Houston. And that dates back to our days against the Houston Oilers, a team that became the Tennessee Titans. The Eagles played the Oilers 3 times in Houston, won all 3 of those games, and then the Eagles have played the Texans so far twice in Houston. So that's a combined record of 5-0 all time whenever the Eagles came to Houston. And when you count our record against the Houston Texans and the Houston Oilers, we are 11-0. 11-0 against Houston teams. We were 6-0 against the Houston Oilers, and we're 5-0 against the Houston Texans. So You're 5-0 playing in Houston, and you're 11-0 all time against Houston teams. You have to win this game. The Philadelphia Eagles own Houston. We own Houston. We cannot let them beat us because you know that we're the last undefeated team. Teams are going to start making their games against us their Super Bowl, basically. Teams are going to be eager to take us down because we have not lost a game yet. And the Houston Texans, they are so bad that people are going to underestimate them. And then I don't want us getting so comfortable thinking, oh, it's just the Houston Texans. And then we end up getting beat. It's a trap game. This is a trap game. It's even trappier than the Lions game in week 1. It's even trappier than Doug Peterson's return to the link with the Jaguars in week 4. It's a trap game. And Jalen Hurts is from Houston. Jalen Hurts, this is going to be a homecoming game for Jalen Hurts. He's from Houston, so Jalen Hurts, I need you to come to the Houston Texans Stadium, NRG Stadium, and I need you to throw those Texans away. I need you to pass that ball to kill these Texans. I need us to stomp these Houston Texans and send them to 1-6-1 because we have no business losing this game. We have no business losing. We should be 8-0. We should be 8-0, ladies and gentlemen. And another thing I want to talk about, so against the Steelers, Jordan Davis suffered a high ankle sprain and will miss 4 to 6 weeks. And that is not ideal. That is not ideal because Jordan Davis plays a huge role in stopping the run. And we're facing a lot of run-heavy teams remaining on the schedule. You have the Houston Texans. I don't think they run the ball that much. But then after that, you get Washington, who we played earlier this season and beat decisively in a game where I thought that Washington was running the ball very well, but they kept making once pass the ball. So Washington, I think they can run the ball with Antonio Gibson. After that, you got the Indianapolis Colts with Jonathan Taylor, who led the league in rushing last year. He's been injured, but he could come back for that game. After that, you got the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Jones at running back, who's becoming an increasingly more prominent part of the Packers offense. And then you get the Tennessee Titans with King Derrick Henry. King Derrick Henry. After that, you get the New York Giants with Saquon Barkley. You still have to play the New York Giants twice, who are 6-2. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks, but the Giants are way better than people thought they were. You got to look at Saquon Barkley twice. You get Ezekiel Elliott one more time, who gashed us in the second half of the Cowboys game, like I previously mentioned. You get Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. We play a lot of run-heavy teams. So without Jordan Davis, how are we going to step up against this run? We got to step up against the run. I know losing Jordan Davis, it really sucks. It sucks. He was our first-round pick. You never want your draft pick to lose that much time in their first year. You don't want them to lose any time, period. But in their first year, that's especially demoralizing. But we got to step up against the run. That is the weakest part of this defense, the run defense. We got to step up against the run. So I will be at this Houston Texans game. I'm actually leaving out on a flight with my mother in a few hours, and it's going to be great. We're going to take over that city. I told you guys, Philadelphia owns Houston. We own Houston. This game should be no different. We should be 6-0 against the Texans all time, and we should be 7-0 in Houston, playing in the city of Houston. So take care, everybody, and go Birds.